So, welcome to the Self Love Sanctuary. My name is Erica Thomas, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California. And I'm also a self compassion coach. I help people specifically with emotional eating using the core principles of self compassion. And I am here with Helen Thomas, my partner in this collaboration. And Helen, you want to let people know who you are?
Hi, I'm Dr. Helen Thomas, and I'm a chiropractor practicing Ayurveda for the last 40 years. And I treat, as Ayurveda does, every disease known to man from an Ayurvedic point of view. And that means that I don't do drugs. Uh, I'm not a medical doctor. I practice Ayurveda. And Ayurveda has a protocol for weight loss. And Ayurveda's basic tenet is that every aspect of a person's life is constantly acknowledging and balancing body, mind, and spirit. And so that's why I am really interested in working with Erica because, and by the way, this is Erica Thomas and I'm Helen Thomas, but we're not related. We just happen to have the same last names. I just want people are sooner or later going to be asking that question.
Right.
So as a body, mind, spirit uh, tenet, that means that in Ayurveda, there are 13 body types. And in Ayurveda, the main concept is that um, you don't treat disease, you treat the body type with the disease. And so in Ayurveda, in the science of Ayurveda, a person's emotions are understood through their body type. A person's mentality is understood through the body type. A person's metabolism is understood through the body type. So we don't treat the mind, the body, or the spirit. We treat that through the body type of the individual. And that is very helpful in weight loss practices. But as I said, every disease known to man has to be approached in that way. And we're all trying to achieve wellness, a healthy weight, energy, a sense of self-enjoyment, self-love. And Erica and I will be exploring how to understand that as a modern Western person using an ancient modern uh, science of the body, mind, and spirit. And I say modern because there are 500,000 practicing Ayurvedic physicians in India today, 262 university hospitals, and they employ 6,000 herbs that are researched, a question of, or not a question, a subject of research in modern research, applying to what looks like the modern aspect of the lifestyle diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer, immune, uh, weight, weight problems, obesity, uh, uh, stress, and all
Yeah.
the subsets that come underneath that. And so we invite you to our YouTube channel. It's a fascinating subject, and both of us are in love with each aspect of, I'm in love with what Erica has to say because it comes from a modern clinical aspect. And I love the work that I see in Ayurveda in my practice because it works.
Yeah, Helen and I are collaborating because we're both interested in a holistic approach and in that true integration between body, mind, and spirit. And what I see in my practice is that, people might come in with anxiety or depression, but then I see certain things that I've learned from you, Helen, that I feel like the anxiety, it's not just an emotional issue that they're coming to me for. Like I can see how it kind of manifests in the body, and there's sometimes it's the person feels like um they've tried all this therapy and it's not completely effective. And so I'm also really interested in this. How can we bring these two together? Because the emotional state is affected by the physical state of the body, and the physical state is affected by the emotional state, and we tend to have them separated. We have doctors who practice physical medicine, and then we have mental health practitioners like myself. And so we're both really interested in bringing these two pieces together. Um, and we're focusing specifically on weight because for me, that's an issue that I have dealt with, struggling with my weight and then also my relationship to food. And the tools that have made the biggest difference for me have been the core components of self-compassion. And when I talk about self-compassion, I'm talking about um, as it is defined by Dr. Kristen Neff. She is a researcher at University of Texas, and there's a lot of research you can read on her website about self-compassion and how it helps with lots of different things. And one of the things that they talk about it helping with is a relationship to food, our relationships with other people in our lives, our motivation. Having self-compassion helps increase our motivation, our positivity, our desire to work towards goals, strive towards goals in our life. So these are really powerful tools. And so I look at how do we use those specifically to deal with, trying to have healthy habits for our bodies.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And what that makes me think about when you talk about that to us is that each body type has a different approach to healthy foods that is instinctually their own. So it's not like it's a one fix uh, for each person, and that includes their approach to self-love. So if we can go a little bit into body types now. There are 13 body types, but there are three major categories. One is a person who has a lot of nervous energy. And in Ayurveda, there are 37 characteristics on the human body that determine what the constitution of the person is, and that's another way of saying body type, and what the pattern of imbalances. So you're just born with a way of dealing with stress. That would be another way of understanding pattern of imbalance. And out of patterns of imbalances come mind patterns, emotion patterns, and they start early on. Okay, so if we're talking about weight gain, okay, and hard, a more difficult life of having balance with weight. It's like, some people, they have no trouble whatsoever. It's not their issue. Okay. But every one of those people are a different body type. And every person with uncontrollable weight gain, an absolute difficulty in management of weight, uh, uh, losing and gaining weight on a yo-yo diet, or yo-yo, just your body just is always doing that. Each one of those people have a very specific body type and a pattern of imbalance. If you want to talk a little Sanskrit, then you could say body type is the word prakruti, Prakruti, and that means constitution. That's your body type. If you go looking up in Ayurvedic books, and I would recommend that you get my Ayurvedic book, and it's online, and you just type in Ayurveda. It's in Amazon, and just type in Dr. Helen Mary Thomas DC in Ayurveda, and it'll come up.
And
But
I'll put a link to that in the description.
okay, great. Thank you. But so let's say that you're always struggling with your weight. And you're like, well, what body type am I? Well, first of all, if a person has a struggle with weight, then their predominant body type is what they call kapha, Kapha. And what does that mean? That body has a slow basal metabolic rate, and it doesn't have very much hydrochloric acid secretion. Those are the 2 points. That's worth writing down, that uh, the predominant dosha, that's another word that if you keep coming back every week, you're going to learn what that means, and you're going to be able to just spit it right out of your mouth. So dosha, kapha dosha, one of the predominant descriptions is a person who puts on weight easily, that comes in with it's a big baby, okay? And they come in with a predominant, they're the ones that go to bed easy and sleep easily. They're the ones that are serene and peaceful, just easy. So weight and kapha are the first thing you have to learn in the first podcast, or I'm sorry, YouTube channel. I all the names that we have for things. I'll say many different ones,
A
but
podcast will probably grow out. Yes.
yeah, someday. Okay. So anyway, that's the first step. And we don't want to overwhelm you. So the two concepts of today's talk is, one, if you have a weight problem, it means that you are a predominant kapha dosha. Now, you're never one dosha. And in the next class, we'll talk about how do I figure out, okay, fine, I always have trouble with my weight. So I have predominant kapha. But what else is going on? How come I can't control it? What would I expect out of it? What are the worst seasons that are going to cause me issues? What are my 37 characteristics, and how do I figure out how much what's happening in my digestive system? What's happening in my nervous system? How do they affect my kapha dosha? So there's a lot to it, but it's just a one step at a time, kind of really pointing back to two things. Your body, I live in this body, and I love this body. So those are the
Yeah.
two that I would say is the most important message for our first talk.
Yeah, I agree. There is a lot to Ayurveda, and you and I have known each other for many years, probably more than 15 years at this point. And so I know that when you talk about this, I already have a foundation to kind of understand. But I remember my first visit to you and feeling like it was all new. And could feel very overwhelming. And I remember you telling me, you just take like one thing. And so I think it's important to, just kind of start with that one thing. And you mentioned a lot of questions that people may have. And I want to mention that, we are inviting people to join us here. So if you are on our email list, then you will get an invitation to join these calls. And that way you'll be able to be here live and ask some of those questions.
Yeah,
So,
that would be great.
yeah, I encourage you to do that. Um, and then I also wanted to tie, kind of our work together. One thing that Helen and I have talked about together is how understanding your body type really helps create a lot of compassion and for yourself, and as you're learning, how do I work with this body type? So in our culture, if we have a weight problem, mainly the message that we get is a lot of shame about that. there's something wrong with me. I can't control my eating. And then we have a lot of judgments about people who are overweight. They're lazy, um, you know, all kinds of things. And so one of the things that I love about Ayurveda is that it teaches us that our bodies, we all live in different bodies. Not everyone has the same body. So looking at someone who carries more weight versus someone who maybe is thin by societal standards, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person who carries more weight is an out of control eater and the person who's thin just has some like magic capabilities to control their eating. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that that's the body that they were born with. Um, and it always makes me think of, um, I go back a lot to thinking about Oprah and how, I just remember being kind of like a teenager, unhappy with my body and my weight, and kind of watching her in front of the whole world. And she's like, she loses weight, and everyone's like, oh, that's so great. Look at Oprah, this great example. And then she would gain weight again, and there's all this criticism, and she'd lose weight again. And looking at it now through the lens of Ayurveda, I'm like, oh, Oprah probably has a predominantly kapha body type. And and I see other stars in the limelight like that. And it's like, how can we come to a place of acceptance of this is my body and I want to learn how to care for it rather than, oh, I have to lose weight because that's what society says that I have to do.
Yeah, boy, that's such a good point. I mean, that is the point, actually, because it's the thing is that life is an everyday event, and you have your body for your whole life.
Mhm.
And you have to manage and love and care for it and climb all the challenges, all the mountains that the mental mountains, the emotional mountains, the physical mountains that are just presented to you in life. And the more you understand about this body that's going to take you through that, these emotions that are going to allow you to find meaning in the struggle, and this sense of creating a mentality that is joyful and willing and able and feels like every day I got something out of this. That's having a relationship and having a relationship with your body and knowing that, I am a kapha. I have a slow metabolism. I don't have a lot of hydrochloric acid. That means that I am steadfast. One of my natural talents and highest ethical integral aspects, characteristics of myself is that I'm steadfast. And it's easy for me to be steadfast. So I've got to lean into understanding that about my kapha body because it's my kapha body that gives me that characteristic. And that characteristic will take you a long way through life. So there's a way to weave in the knowledge of your body, mind, and spirit every day that strengthens you, that gives you a foundation of loving yourself. And that's what that's what our work is all about. For me and really our work together that we've done. I mean, I've known you since you were, I don't know, pretty young, and your son was like 9 years old, I think.
Yeah, and I was in my mid 30s and just starting grad school. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's an example of weaving that life together, not with, uh, what do I want to say about them? Commercial magazine talk about how to enjoy life. That's not going to get it. That has always made me feel like I can't measure up. And I've had to really work hard at changing my relationship with myself, that every day is not about me measuring up to anything. It's about me enjoying what it is that I have. And sometimes I have a disturbed mentality. Sometimes I have a sensitive, emotional sense of myself. Sometimes I look in the mirror and the battle of the bulge gets on my nerves. Okay. And then I got to say, okay, so what do you think about that today? Okay, I'll go on a walk. I'll uh, think about things that make me joyful. I'll tap into my steadfastness and just feel really grounded in my life, and I'll feel my gratitude. And I'll work at it even though I have this other stuff in my mind and this feeling of not being pretty because I have bulges. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And an hour later, I'm enjoying my life and I'm not thinking of any of those things. I didn't make it worse by saying, but I'm just not understanding why I don't feel good enough. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to go after some answers here. There's where my steadfastness comes in. And every day there's some negotiation that goes on like that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we're just here to help you go through those days like we are. And we're doing this because it helps us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we have this knowledge because this is something that, each of us has worked on and struggled with and sometimes overcome and sometimes not, right, in our own lives.
Right.
And so, we bring that passion of like, well, whatever bit of knowledge I've gained about this, let me bring this to other people to in hopes of easing the suffering of other people because I think that when it comes to weight, especially for me, there has been so much needless suffering in my life because of it.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, feeling like I'm not pretty. I mean, I remember you telling me at one point, at least I hold on to this as something that I, heard from you, is that people who are predominantly kapha body type actually have a lot of attractive characteristics
Oh, yeah.
about them, and yet we're walking around telling ourselves just because of the weight, I'm not attractive.
Yeah. That's
Um,
the way. That's exactly true.
yeah.
And Kafic people, they are the ones like that bring the peace.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
what a gift. If you're Vata, you have such a high basal metabolic rate, it's very hard to be steadfast. You're always scooping from one thing to another. You have a scattered mind. Well, that is not a pleasant feeling to live life trying to anchor that back. Okay. And pittas get angry, they get hot, they become over judgmental because they have too much hydrochloric acid. So their job in life is eating foods that don't produce hydrochloric acid. They say that pitta people are addicted to intensity.
Hmm.
And so, there's so much work to be done just being a human being.
Right. And I just wanted to bring that back to looking at weight also. And because someone who is predominantly Vata body type will tend to be very thin. So we may be looking at that person thinking, and we might see these people in movies or on TV or something and thinking, oh, that person has it all. They have this great thin body. Everything's good for them, right? Um, and then talking about Pitta, I know, you've talked about Pittas, they tend to have more of a medium build, right? And they might be looking at themselves, thinking, oh, I just need to lose a few pounds. Like that could be a person who lives their whole lives feeling like, oh, I just need to, lose 10 or 15 pounds, when really they don't. They're just right.
Exactly.
So,
And pittas get rashes easily.
mhm.
And they get overheated. So everybody really has a challenge. And it's really not anything. I mean, it's like what I love about Ayurveda is that it took me out of the box. I mean, it was like,
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't even understand like 40 years ago how much it took me out of the box, but I couldn't think of people as here they are, they're broken, I got to fix them. That that's an arrogant, crazy. That's not helping. I didn't know that, but I was a kid and I thought, I know something they don't know about their body. I'm going to do it to them and they're going to be better. Which there is an element to that, of course. But really, what I learned over the years is that I have a body, it's a certain body type. There are weaknesses in it and strengths in it. And I now understand its basic operating manual, and I see about what it needs every day. And I give it a little bit to the body, a little bit to the mind, a little bit to the spirit, and I develop my relationship of self-love because I do that. And I don't have to be like anybody else, but I have to know myself well enough to tend to myself in a deep enough way that I'm actually experiencing a sense of well-being that I am having as a relationship to myself. And
And so,
that is the gift of Ayurveda.
yeah, so I wanted to talk about self-compassion for a moment in there because something you said I think is so important about how, you know, um I want to know myself well enough and attend to myself and my needs, based on what, my needs are, whether it's the needs of my body or my mental and emotional needs. And the reason that I keep coming back to self-compassion, whether I'm working with my clients on, depression and anxiety or teaching people about changing their eating habits, is because I I believe that we don't grow up with self-compassion as the default. We learn to have compassion for other people. We learn that it's important to be kind to other people. We do not learn the importance of being kind to ourselves. So in this first video, I want to talk about what the three core components of self-compassion are. So Kristen Neff defines them as self-kindness, which is really the foundation of self-compassion. And self-kindness means that I learn to treat myself with the same kindness and compassion that I would give to a friend or a loved one who was suffering in the same way. So if a friend or a loved one came to me and said, I'm feeling a lot of shame about my weight, or I'm having trouble controlling my eating, we probably wouldn't say to them, oh yeah, that's just because you're weak and you need to just have more willpower or get it together, right? We would probably say something kind and supportive to them, like, oh, I read this book, maybe that would help you, or I hear that's really hard for you. Or we might even share, I've gone through the same thing. And that is the second core component of self-compassion, which Kristen Neff calls common humanity. It's this understanding that we are not alone with our struggles. So um, there's this real benefit to when we share with someone, hearing from them, oh, I've gone through the same thing, which is one reason why support groups are so popular, 12-step groups, because it's like when you get into that group, you know that other people have gone through the same thing, and that fellowship and that connection with each other and knowing that we're not alone is a really powerful source of healing. And then the third core component of self-compassion is mindfulness. And mindfulness is all about how can I be more in the present moment and present with my feelings and emotions in this struggle. So a lot of times when we're struggling, the first instinct is to push it away. It's uncomfortable, it's painful. Nobody wants to feel that. So we just try and push it away. Let me not think about that right now. Let me go on with my day. Let me look for something distracting, something more fun to think about, um, or veg out in front of the Netflix and, binge watch a show, which I absolutely do also. So, we all do this. And the mindfulness piece is about if I can acknowledge that I'm having a struggle, then I can apply some self-kindness and some common humanity, and and that eases my suffering about it. So rather than covering it up with a distraction, I take a moment to say, oh yeah, I'm struggling with this. And I had this happen, just over the weekend. I was I was out and about and I was having this thought. I was like, oh, I really want to go to this cafe that's nearby and get their chocolate cake. And so but I realized that I didn't really want the chocolate cake. The chocolate cake was more about, another time when I'd visited the cafe, and it was about this kind of family outing and the togetherness and wanting to kind of recapture a good feeling.
Beautiful.
And so I, but there was a part of me that still really wanted that chocolate cake. So I called a friend of mine who also has a similar issue with food, and we talked about it. And so we were able to really, acknowledge the feelings I was having and her be like, yeah, I know what that's like and all of that. And then and then I went home and went about my day. It was like I didn't want the chocolate cake anymore, right? Because I got that connection I was really looking for. So that's where the mindfulness piece comes in. It can seem like, well,
That's
why would I
beautiful.
want to acknowledge my suffering? But it was a moment of acknowledgement that then led to a really nice connection with my friend. So,
That's beautiful. And that, that is really for a kapha person, okay, the kapha body type, the kapha composition as a human being has a natural inclination to do that, to go deeper within. Because unlike the Vata mind that goes really fast and sensitive, and the Pitta mind that quickly makes a judgment from one to the other, the Kapha mind is the mind that sits and listens. And so that's a very important for people who have a predisposition to wait. They have a predisposition also to do what you did, which is to dig deeper and listen. That's where that word steadfastness can really be used. So that's a beautiful example.
yeah.
And it's also a characteristic that should be underlined and brought out and recognized about the kapha person and the kapha body type. That's
Right. So that steadfastness, I think, I'm wanting us to kind of think about what's the points that we want to leave people with. And it sounds like for you, that's one of them is that kapha body type has this steadfastness, which is can be a very helpful quality in a lot of ways.
yeah, it's a
Um,
powerful characteristic in a temperament, in a mental temperament that
mhm.
is your tool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
you were steadfast.
Hmm.
See, a Vata mind is just quick, sensitive to their thought.
Right, yeah,
And a pit
yeah.
of mine is uh, maybe judgmental against, no, you can't eat that.
Hmm.
And a cup
Right.
of mine, right?
And all of those thoughts can come in too. And so I think that it's important to recognize that when we're approaching the issue of weight from this very traditional model of, there's something wrong with me because I'm eating the wrong things or whatever, um, that um, all of those all of those thoughts can come in. So which piece are we paying attention to? And for me, I believe the having compassion for myself makes it easier to pay attention to kind of go within in that kapha way. Um, and so,
It's also a characteristic that is one of the Kafic strengths is the
mhm,
self-love. So
right.
it's a beautiful and brilliant pathway to
Yeah,
self-care for a Kapha person because
right,
it's something that Kapha instinctually is attracted to.
right. So instead of, saying to myself, no, you can't eat that because you're too fat, you know, or um, or just going into that mode of like, oh, but I'm feeling something and I have to do something about it right now.
Right.
Instead of doing either one of those things, having the compassion for I was able to have that mindfulness piece and sit with it and then work with it. So,
It's
I just want
exciting.
people to understand that self-compassion, can we can kind of have mixed feelings about it. It's like, oh, it's gonna be, too like touchy-feely, or it's gonna be all soft and squishy, but there's a component to self-compassion that is strength, that is fierce. In fact, Kristen Neff wrote a new book called Fierce Self-Compassion. So it's very interesting to read some of her newer stuff about fierce self-compassion and this understanding that, we have compassion for our loved ones, right? I like to compare it to our children. Of course, we have compassion for our children, but it doesn't mean that we just let them do whatever they want or we're always soft with them, right? Sometimes we make rules, sometimes we're firm with them, because we know it's what's best for them. So self-compassion is the same. Sometimes we're going to be firm with ourselves, and I talk to myself in the way that I might have talked to my son when he was little. I'd be like, okay, Erica, I know that you want that chocolate cake, but you know what? We're not going to do that right now because I think there's something better for us to do in this moment. And so self-compassion is the same way. Sometimes it's firm, sometimes it's fierce, sometimes it's really strong.
Yes. It reminds me of one of the ways that they described Kaphic body types in the very early days when I first started taking courses at the Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa, that Kaphic predominant people usually become judges
Mhm.
because they have that foundation of self-love and love in general, and they can listen to uh, the dilemma of the person, and they can see the lack of judgment that got the person in, but they can see the goodness of the person.
Mhm.
Okay. And so that is what a kapha can do for themselves naturally, uh, more than other body types, actually.
That's nice. I like that. I love that. And I love that image of, the judge, like being able to see the goodness in the person. Because we don't always look at when we think about a judge or we think about that act of judging, right? I think we think of it as maybe more adversarial and more the negative, but to have that balance, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Ayurveda, because it brings it to each and every human being and it's through the pathway of knowing yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's a difference between a little Volkswagen and a big Mercedes. There's a difference. They work differently. You're never going to be able to, if you don't know how to be a mechanic to the Volkswagen, um, then you're not going to be able to work on the Volkswagen. If you don't know how to be a
Mm-hmm.
mechanic to the Mercedes, you won't be able to work on it. And when I say this, I remember that I had this lady from Germany who was practicing Ayurveda that came to my office for a week one time. And after at the end of the week, she said, you Americans, I noticed that you always compare the body to cars. So, and I thought to myself, okay, fine, we're not cars, you know.
Right.
So I will remind all of us, we're not cars. But on the other side, it's very clear that a skinny body that can eat anything operates differently than a kapha body that can eat a very well. Actually, in the Ayurvedic explanation of the kaphic body type, it says that a kapha body should not eat more than 800 calories a day. Now, who can do that? Right?
Right.
But that's how little food Ayurveda
Mm-hmm.
says it takes to run these big bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas the Vata body, because its metabolism is so fast, they're they can easily eat 2,000 calories and
Mm-hmm.
should. Now that
Right.
always has just racked my brains.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something I go around just throwing at my patients.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's like you just, they can't, they're working so hard at it and they're operating from our American magazine idea of our bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really hurting them.
Right. Yeah. I think of it as, as you and I have talked about framing our work together, we talked about this as in addition to, talking about weight for people, also it's about a journey of self-discovery, right?
Absolutely.
And for all of us, that journey of self-discovery takes different doorways, For some
Yep,
people, it might be through career. For other people, it might be through family, it might be through relationships. And one of the relationship with our bodies is just one doorway. So
that's right.
because of, for those of us who live in a kapha body, if that's a path that calls to us to work on that relationship with our body, it's about more than just the weight. It's about that self-discovery also.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's where we get our deepest fulfillment.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
when, you know, where we really just feel like happy life,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
because
So
we've learned that we live it.
yeah. So we're getting to a time to wrap up. So that seems like a nice kind
Yeah,
of place to wrap up. And so I just want to reiterate also that if you're on our email list, you will be invited to join us at this time live. And if you have questions that you want to bring, you can ask them here. You can also put questions in the chat. So we will be here on Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're in California, so it'll be that specific time. And I will email you the link if you're on my list and you can join us. And I will put a We'll probably start with me putting my email in the description of the video. And so if you want to join our email list, you can just email me and I'll do it. We'll do it manually while I'm learning the technology behind creating an automation for that. So that is my task over the next few weeks, is learning how to automate that. Um, but for now, just email me and tell me that you want to be on the list and be invited. Um, into these Zoom calls. And then if you're not able to come live, you can always come to our YouTube channel. And if you like the videos, please like them. Please subscribe to our channel so you'll get notified each time that we post a new one.
sounds great. And also in the underneath in the description on the YouTube channel, I'll put my landing page, which will lead you to, you can come and you can ask me a question, and or you can do a full 90-minute consultation, or there are options in between.
Yes, yes, we need to get your landing page added there. I have my website on there and we're going to add your
Okay.
landing page so you'll be able to reach us. And then I will also add some of these Sanskrit words that come up as we're
Oh, good.
talking so that you will have like a little glossary in the description about the terms that we're talking about. Okay.
Nice, nice.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Well, that was
you.
great. Come
All
on
right.
back. All right.
See you next time.
Okay. Bye,
All right.
Erica.
Bye.